it helps us create a set of criteria as to what types of applications and services make a lot of sense in the cloud. So here's a list of 4 criteria that I created. Now, meeting any one of these criteria may be enough to justify doing something in the cloud versus having it done, in your own facility, or investing in your own IT infrastructure. Having multiple criteria met almost ensures that it would make sense to run that application or service using cloud infrastructure instead of building your own. So one is the application management intensive. I think email is a good example of this. Managing email servers is not easy, but once you have the infrastructure set up properly and you have somebody in place that knows how to manage that infrastructure, you could very easily manage, one mailbox, or you can manage, 1,000 mailboxes. So there is real kind of economies of scale there, benefits to scale of having just one centralized infrastructure manage a lot of mailboxes, and that is something that you see more and more. Small businesses are choosing to outsource the management of their email infrastructure offsite instead of trying to have their own email servers being housed in their office. Number 2 is access by users in multiple locations. So if you have employees or vendors or partners that are all accessing a similar application, and they're doing it in multiple offices, multiple states, maybe even multiple countries, or while they're traveling and on the road, which obviously it's just become much more common here over the last handful of years, particularly with people now accessing data from smartphones and tablets and things like that. Anytime you have that situation, it oftentimes really does make much more sense to have that application or service being hosted in an environment that's set up properly to have people access it remotely. The third criteria is having large amounts of data. Large amounts of data can be difficult to manage, and having a centralized location to manage that data and store that data can really be much more cost effective and scalable. And number 4, having large swings in data or swings in the use of the application or service. So because cloud computing allows you to rapidly provision resources, if you need a large amount of additional data storage quickly, or if you need to scale from, say, 10 users to 50 users quickly and maybe back down just as quickly, then it oftentimes makes a whole lot of sense to do things in the cloud versus trying to host things on your own. So some specific examples here. I already mentioned email. Databases are another one. Databases are pretty difficult to manage, pretty complex, and have oftentimes experience very large growth very quickly. So having those databases managed in the cloud, where the database can take advantage of essentially unlimited access to storage and capacity, and have a better, more stable environment, one that's been set up really properly, is it makes it a great thing to host off in the cloud. Storage, very similar. Storage is becoming cheaper and cheaper, and certainly the large cloud service providers are buying up just massive amounts of storage on the cheap and are able to offer storage to you in a very expensive, cost-effective service that can scale up or down very quickly. Fourth is backup. Backup is, particularly for small businesses, been something that's very, very hard to manage over time and to get just right in terms of making sure that you are backing up all of your data and that it's safe and that there's multiple copies of it just in case anything happens. Backup service providers now are oftentimes either 100% cloud-based, or they have a local backup option that also gets copied up to a cloud-based infrastructure as well, so that you can have a local copy of your data and a cloud-based copy of your data. Those services really, really are a dramatic improvement from the old tape drives that small businesses used to use, and many of them still do use, which are notoriously fickle and difficult to make work properly. So having your backup being done by a cloud service can make just a huge difference and can be very cost effective. CRM is a, Salesforce.com is a very famous cloud service and a CRM application. And most small businesses today are using some sort of CRM application, and a cloud option is fantastic. I mean, just using Salesforce as an example, it's an application that's very difficult to beat if you have the need for what they provide, and it's also very affordable when you look at the cost of having to try and replicate that yourself and build your own infrastructure to host it. It would be nearly impossible. So the fact that CRM also is accessed by many different devices, handheld devices, phones, tablets, and oftentimes while traveling makes it a fantastic application to host in the cloud. Similar for project management. Most project management applications, it seems that people work with outside vendors or employees or customers that are in different offices. So having a cloud-based application that makes it easy for people to access is certainly a great way to have a project management tool in place as well. So this is certainly not an exhaustive list of applications for use in the cloud, but I think some good representative examples of what types of things are best for use in the cloud. So what are the major benefits that a small business can expect if they decide to go ahead to try to offload some or even all of their information technology services and applications to the cloud? What are the benefits that they can expect? I think that the most important one from the small business perspective that I hear is the fact that they now can invest in less hardware and software themselves. Having to make those large purchases in hardware and software can be very difficult for small businesses and just very frustrating. And certainly, even a very small business can spend tens of thousands of dollars each year on hardware and software. And that is an expensive purchase for anybody. It's a difficult one to make. So the fact that with cloud computing, they can no longer, or they can minimize at least, the purchases that they have to make in hardware and software to a large degree can be just a really big incentive for small businesses. So this goes to point number 2, less capital investment and transition to an operating expense. So going along with point 1, instead of having to buy servers and instead of having to buy licenses of software and take ownership of those licenses, it's now possible that I can just turn on the computing resources that my employees need and turn on the software access that they need. It really just by hopping online and doing a quick order, and now all of those things are available to me. And I no longer have to take ownership of any hardware. I don't have to take ownership of any software. I'm just using them, again, like a utility where I'm turning on those services, and I can turn them off when I need to as well. So it's a huge benefit. Instead of having those upfront capital purchases and maybe having to tie up your credit to make the purchases that you need, you can now just use the hardware and software as a service and keep that as an operating expense on your books. Dynamic access and billing, again, I just mentioned that, but for some businesses, this really is just a tremendous benefit. There are a lot of businesses that are out there that are seasonal and tend to scale up and down their employee counts throughout the year. So if you have to purchase for the maximum capacity, even though the majority of the year you are not at maximum capacity, that can be a real downside to your business model, right? So the cloud computing services that allow you to scale up quickly and scale back down quickly, both from the perspective of access to the computing services and also for billing, can be a real game changer for a lot of businesses. Dynamic capacity and easy upgrades. We talked about that when we mentioned which applications and services